So at this stage, can I invite Paul to join us on stage?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Lyle, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I am delivering a personal apology from Dr. Stoop, which he passed to me before I left Wellington a couple of hours ago, and he's deeply regretful that he can't be here for this, but something did come up that has taken his attention away. He's unbelievably busy, actually, and not only is he Deputy Secretary with responsibility for investing in education success, but he's also just recently taken on the responsibility of Deputy Secretary for the Schooling Achievement Group, which Rowena Fair was previously Deputy Secretary, just in the last few days, really. So his workload has expanded quite considerably. But he really regrets not being here. I know he's been very keen to take every opportunity he can to get out face-to-face and talk with groups like this, and hopefully he'll continue to do so. But I apologise that you got me instead. So I'll do my best anyway to pick up on the sorts of things that Dr. Stoop would have talked about. I've been involved in investing in education success for, well, all of this year and a little bit longer. I work in the schooling policy group, but have been working on investing in educational success for that long. So I've kind of been through this really exciting and interesting evolution of this huge new initiative that government announced this year. It's exciting both, I think, in terms of the process that we've been going through to date. I haven't been, and I don't think many people in the ministry would have been involved in a process where something was announced as a budget initiative, and then the detailed policy work of how this would actually play out was an open conversation. And it's become more open as we've been progressing through that work. So it's a new experience for certainly myself and colleagues in the ministry, and it's a new experience, I think, for a lot of people in the sector that have been involved in this as well. So it's really kind of groundbreaking in that sense. And I think it's exciting because of the opportunities that are being made available through this approach in investing in education success. And it picks up, and I haven't been here this morning, but certainly looking at the program and what I know about the intent of this meeting, and I see the afternoon's program and tomorrow, that theme of collaboration and building collaborative learning cultures seems to be a topic that's at the heart of the discussions here, and that's really at the heart of investing in education success too. And this initiative is about getting knowledge mobilised, getting expertise, getting those who know what works and can make it work, and sharing that across the system. New Zealand's not unique in this sense that most jurisdictions in their education systems have wonderful examples of excellent practice, and New Zealand's fortunate enough to have many, many, many of them. But there is an issue with making that best practice universal practice, and one of the key parts of investing in education success and what it's trying to achieve is to mobilise that knowledge, get that really good practice up and shared across schools, within schools, between teachers, between principals, between schools and their communities, so that every student achieves success and every student gets the best outcomes from their experience through schooling and through the education system. So Graham Stoop, he's talked about sticky knowledge, and really this is about making it unsticky. How can we free it up and make it used more effectively across the system? It's also about that theme of collaboration. And one of the ways that we've seen, and there is certainly a lot of research and a lot of evidence from successful systems and from the work of people like Hargreaves and Michael Fullen and many others, that indicates we do better if people work together and build that notion of social capital, that when the parts are all working together, then you get a greater output than if they're just working individually. And collaborative practice is another theme that is really at the heart of investing in educational success. How can we better support those examples of collaborative practice that are already in the system, and there are many, many of them now, and how can we sustain those and grow those right across so it's a key feature of what New Zealand education system looks like. People look at it and they'll see that collaborative practice is what we do here, across schools, across classrooms, between teachers, so that all kids learn better. That notion that we are all got some responsibility at all levels for every student in the system, not necessarily just those ones we've got today, but all of them. So those are kind of two big things that IES is trying to achieve. Sorry, that little term, IES, excuse me if I use that, but there's an awful lot of new acronyms have sprung up in this language around IES, and I'll try and avoid them, but yeah. Investing in education success. It's about knowledge mobilisation, freeing that up, and it's about collaboration. I think there are some byproducts that are advantageous as well, and that it gives an opportunity for educators, professionals, teachers to take up leadership responsibilities and leadership opportunities that are focused on professional practice and professional learning. And I think the new roles that are in here provide that opportunity as well. And it's certainly something that we know over the last several years has been something that the professional sector itself has been talking about and trying to build, so that there are opportunities that don't necessarily mean people have to move through management tracks, but there's an alternative to progress in the career structure as well. And I think in IES, in investing in education success, these new roles provide some of that opportunity. So look, Lyle was saying, look, I don't want to go, right back and sort of teach you stuff or talk about stuff that you already know, but I think where we're at with investing in education success is that there's been a lot of work since that first announcement in January, when government talks about this notion of communities of schools forming. Inside those, they'd be resourced to undertake that collaborative knowledge mobilisation work through a series of new roles. A new principal leadership role was called the executive principal at the start. It's now being framed as the community of schools leadership role. I don't know if you've experienced before, but there is a lot of discussion to be had over the final appropriate title for anything in the education system, and certainly these roles are still under discussion as to what they'll be called. But the working title that we're using is Community of Schools Leadership Role, and that's really describing what that role is about more than the title itself. And there are two teacher roles in this. One of them is the Community of Schools Teacher Across Schools role, and that's that role where a teacher who's met some national criteria and seem to have some particular expertise in supporting their colleagues in developing their practice will be released to work across schools, not just in their own school. And there's another Community of Schools teacher role, which will be a role that stays and remains within the school that they're currently employed, but also to help teachers examine, inquire into and develop their own practice. So those are the three kind of core roles which you've probably heard about. If you have a look on the, and I noticed that we haven't got any on the table out there, along with all the other really cool resources. I'm so cool to see the best evidence synthesis is sitting here. When I first came into the ministry, I was lucky enough to be working with Adrian Alton-Lee on the development just as the first quality teaching best evidence synthesis was coming out, and it was kind of life-changing in a way for me. It made me realise what a horrendous teacher I'd been probably before that, but it's really great that they're out here and those are kind of driving the thinking of some of this group in the discussion. So there are those three roles, and you probably know about those. There's another role which was the Change Principal Allowance, it was called previously. That's now being termed the Principal Recruitment Allowance, and that's that allowance that seeks to widen the pool of principals that may want to move into a vacancy in a school that has some particularly serious issues around student achievement and may benefit from being able to incentivise and attract from a wider pool of applicants than might have been the case previously. So that's that principal recruitment allowance. And then there's the Teaching and Teacher-Led Innovation Fund. And now that's something which is going to be made available from next year. There's a $10 million fund. $2 million in the next financial year, and then $4 million the year after, and $4 million the year after that. And Dr. Stoop wanted me to stress that the ministry, government are really keen that that fund is totally used up. It's a 3-year fund. If it's not used up, then governments tend not to be so inclined to extend them and give them out again. So I'd really strongly stress that schools, when that fund becomes available, they consider ways to take advantage of that. And that's really a fund that is about knowledge mobilisation as well, but it's about that being driven from teacher and classroom practice. So it's an opportunity for teachers to think about innovation, think about embedding practices they know that they've seen and being able to inquire into those with the assistance of some perhaps academic expertise to ensure that what comes out of that is really valuable and can help the teachers think about how those may be disseminated and perhaps even scaled up and used more broadly. But I think that's a real opportunity, that fund, that we hope all schools and teachers will seriously consider taking up and making use of for next year. So that's kind of the guts of it. What's happened is we've been working with, there's really two strands of work that are going on. One of them is a series of work streams that are focusing on actually developing the processes and some of the implementation detail around those new roles, how communities or schools might form, how those new roles might actually work out in practice. And there, actually some of my colleagues are here too, Jane Chapman over there and Barry Boothby, they're both in the Investing in Education Success team as well. Jane's leading a piece of work which is looking at what kind of criteria and what sort of national consistent criteria might be able to be applied to those new roles, so that we're sure that actually people moving into those positions are really in a position to succeed when they take up those new roles. So Jane's doing a piece of work there. Those work streams are done in partnership with PBTA, NZEI and representatives from New Zealand School Trustees Association. And they've all been thoroughly engaged in that work. Different views you will have heard about. NZEI, I just want to recognise, very clearly that all the way through that they've considered that the majority of this work should probably be discussed in the industrial bargaining space, and I want to respect that. And for that reason, there's probably a whole lot of stuff that I don't want to get into in terms of what will be the shape of investing in educational success, because that's still to be determined. But I think I'll just try and give you a sense of what the intent from government and the ministry's point of view is. So there's those three work streams going on. There's also a bargaining stream going on, which Lyle's referred to. You may have seen already that there was some draft agreement reached with the secondary principals in variation to their collective agreement last day or so. It's been I think there was a report in Education Review just yesterday about that, so you can have a look at that. That's still then to be taken out and ratified by members. There's still a couple of other bits of work around developing some of the guidelines which we need to finish over the next month or two before that draft agreement can be voted on by that union's members. And obviously we're still to hear where NZEI sits in that. So we've certainly been progressing very enthusiastically and optimistically with the work with those partners. Dr. Stoop's been out talking to as many people as he can to get their views and to let them know that this is progressing. And so that's kind of the stage we're at the moment. We think there's a real opportunity, and from certainly the ministry's point of view, we're looking to progress that as successfully as we can. So that's kind of what I think Dr. Stoop was hoping to cover with you today, and I'm happy, as Lyle said, to respond to anything that comes out of the discussion later on if I can help with that.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. Good.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
You'll leave your chance at the moment. Just as an outsider and a long remove from the classroom XXX teacher, by the way, don't use groundbreaking in Christchurch. Earth-shaking is okay, not groundbreaking.
No,
right. Okay, so the basic aim is getting knowledge across the system, across the learning ecology. There are new roles and pathways for both classroom teachers and at least some either principals or other senior teachers who might get involved in the collaboration. That's right, absolutely. Which are being pulled into some of the negotiations happening now.
Yep, they're
at
all
the secondary level.
Secondary level. Yeah, that's right. And some of those things have been, as you say, reached some agreement with the parties to the secondary agreements. We're still in a position of working way through those with the primary sector. I mean, those roles, there are leadership opportunities there, and if principals are in a position and we end up that those roles are taken up, then there's other opportunities as well for others in schools to fill in those kind of roles that where the principals are taking time to work across schools as well. So.
And I see you've dropped the term executive principals, which probably might have scared some horses.
Yeah, there was concern about that, and I mean a title's a title, you know, and so we don't want those to be barriers to anything that this is trying to achieve. So at the moment we're working with those community of schools, teacher and leadership roles as the kind of descriptors at the moment.
And because some people are from the tertiary sector or early childhood, which
Okay.
are both outside the initiative,
Yes.
aren't they? It's only the compulsory sector, although one could argue it'd be nice if one had the money to have all
The resources,
transition
you're right,
points covered.
the resources for the schooling sector, but communities themselves are about the learner pathway right the way through, and they're certainly completely encouraged to, and there is no barrier to them engaging and incorporating both where students are coming from in terms of early childhood sector and where they're moving to in terms of tertiary and on to employment. So the community itself, while it's resourced through the schooling component, the community is that serves the learner right the way through. So,
and the other end of the scale with links with industry and so forth?
there are a whole lot of existing networks springing up and in existence already, particularly those around the Youth Guarantee networks, which are focused on that move to industry. This is really looking, and certainly nothing to prevent that happening, and where that can, I think that sort of evolution will be really advantageous. I think if we can focus on that community around the professional educators in the schooling with connections to early childhood and onto tertiary space, then that's fine. The outcome really for students is where they go and where they're successful in their lives. Now that's through employment and whatever else they do in their lives. So obviously thinking about where students go is critical to what happens in schools now and should be as part of that, those communities as well.
So done properly, this could give some real substance to the phrase that Steve Mahara used at the first ELF on personalised learning, if it's done properly.
Well, personalised learning is an approach I think that educators in schools will be paying attention to and working with now anyway. Communities of schools is a way that supports collaboration and understanding of what personalised learning means and what's successful about it and what practices sit behind personalised learning and can be shared and spread. So, you know, what's really good about professional practice should be spread more widely, and investing in education success aims to support that.
Oh, indeed. But also, isn't it also, though, as a pupil moves through the system, say from primary or a student from primary to secondary, isn't the implication there'll be more sharing of knowledge and records and whatever, so that the term personal pathways could at least encompass primary and secondary?
Oh, absolutely. So this is about the learner being understood and catered for and supported, and their strengths built upon right the way through that whole journey. And if that means there are conversations happening across those institutional boundaries that support that better, then I think there's a real positive benefit in that.
That would be crucial.
Absolutely.
And there seems to be a different response, doesn't it, from the secondary sector to the primary sector? Tom's pastor seems to be encouraging his members to engage with the system.
Yes,
The
you would have seen that.
and the primary principals seem to be a little more reluctant.
Yeah, that's certainly conversations we're having. You know, as I say, we've reached some draft agreement at least with the secondary principals and progressing. You know, you will all have read and no doubt, you know, people will be reflecting different parts of the sector here, so they'll be aware of where the different parties sit on that. In the conversations I've certainly had, I know that the ideas of collaboration, the ideas of sharing expertise and knowledge, the idea of focusing on students and learner needs are things that are common across the whole system. So I don't think any of those things are new. I think that, you know, the way these things play out in the different sectors, the way the business is done in a secondary school is certainly at some levels different from that's organised in primary sectors, and so there are differences and there are concerns about how those things would play out and what the implications are. So, you know, yeah, we're progressing at different speeds with different parts of the sector.
Right, well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.